As explained in class, critical race theory defines the lost voices of people in a non-dominant race of a society and promotes knowledge of areas we have no knowledge of. According to the theory, racism is much more than an individual prejudice and more of a systemic feature of a social structure. It is not a surprise, then, that the Disney animation of Pocahontas is far from the truth, meaning that Pocahontas didn't really marry John Smith in Jamestown. Instead, she converted to Christianity, took the name Rebecca, and married the Englishman John Rolfe. It was agreed by many people that the legend of Pocahontas was a story that was more appealing and entertaining for the audience than the real story because it was a story where people got along with each other. The legend of Pocahontas was portrayed by the Euro-Americans as a tale of multicultural acceptance and cross-cultural understanding. But in reality, the arrival of the Europeans was a tragedy for Pocahontas and her people because they were conquered in the battles with the white men. The term savage was a term used to call the Native Americans, and in reality, the Europeans came to Pocahontas' land as a part of a colonial expansion to exploit the New World solely for financial gain. As a colonizer, Smith helped conquer indigenous people and then appropriated their land. Orientalism is the theory of viewing Eastern cultures and norms as the other. The conflict in the legend of Pocahontas is based on differences between the American Indians and British settlers. They both viewed the other as foreign because of their language, skin color, and culture. Even today, we picture the Indians and British settlers much different than they actually were. Viewing the legend from an Orientalist point of view almost seems to come naturally. In Pocahontas, there were clear examples of Marxism. For instance, the British were the people with the power, and the Native Americans were the powerless. The British were powerful because they were more developed and had better weapons such as guns. This made the Indians powerless, not only because they were outnumbered, but they only had crude weapons such as spears to defend themselves with.
Inaccurate. I like the overall idea of Thanksgiving, but not where it actually comes from.
Turkey and white pilgrims. I don't know what the first Thanksgiving was, but I highly doubt it was a group of happy pilgrims and a group of happy Indians cooking turkey together.
Family.
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 Watch football, overeat.
Warm.
A celebration.
Thankful.
Thanksgiving, to me, means a day for football and lots of good eating and trying not to think about what it really represents.
The first Thanksgiving is highly debated, ranging from the gathering of two races to a time of genocide and racism. The Thanksgiving taught to us in school tells the tale of white English Protestants leaving the Church of England for religious freedom. Initially moving to Holland, they left for the New World after 12 years in fear that their young would denounce religion. After winds took them off course from New York, they arrived in what is now known as Cape Cod. This is where things get controversial. Some say Squanto, from the Wampanoag tribe, knew English from the other English settlers and helped the Pilgrims grow corn and use fish to fertilize their fields. The two very different races joined forces to keep each other safe and had a huge 3-day feast after their harvest. This was known as the first Thanksgiving and spawned what we celebrate every November. While looking at the first Thanksgiving from a critical race theory perspective, both good and evil are shown. For that isolated incident, race was respected as both parties were able to learn from each other's culture to create peace. It is critical that we don't forget all the other incidents of racism that happened during this time period. Other European settlers chose to commit genocide against the Native Americans, calling them savages compared to the white man. So maybe the first Thanksgiving was peaceful, but this was a lone incident during a time of racial-motivated genocide against Native Americans. How does this relate today? Some people choose to celebrate un-Thanksgiving Day to honor all the indigenous people who were killed by white settlers. Racial justice advocates like Colin Kaepernick have joined in this memorial. A feast went on amongst the Wampanoag Indians and the Pilgrims in 1621. Prior to the Wampanoag Indians helping the Pilgrims experienced a lot of famine and diseases on their ship. The Indians introduced the Pilgrims to many ways of harvesting as a part of survival and preparing for the feast. As a way of thanking the Wampanoag Indians, a feast was held between the natives and the Pilgrims. In this predicament, the Pilgrims can be looked at from an Orientalism perspective due to the fact that they were pretty much living in the territory of the Wampanoag Indians. These natives were teaching the Pilgrims new and innovative ways of life that they were not used to, and which they can be labeled as the others.
What is Thanksgiving?
We eat turkey.
You eat a turkey?
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's put that down. Yes, Logan.
Thanksgiving is about being thankful for what they give to you.
Who?
Well, it's all about being thankful. Yeah.
Yeah, was you going to say something?
Celebrate the Indians.
Celebrate the Indians? Oh, darling. Okay.
Using a Marxist literary theory lens, it is clear that the power imbalance between the white settlers and the Native Americans has controlled narratives surrounding the first Thanksgiving. The resulting commemoration of that is an act of remembering together and is one of the most important American holidays. Scholars of collective memory note, any historical narrative is a particular bundle of silences. This can be seen in children's textbooks and storybooks, and in more modern American traditions such as the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade and the presidential speech. Because white people have controlled this narrative for so long, there is a collective historical consciousness surrounding Thanksgiving and the feast, leaving out the war and disease that was brought to the Native Americans.